Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way. Hello, I'm Claire.
I'm James.
We're the Midlife Mentors, bringing you our third episode live from the very sunny Ibiza.
Yeah, and on today's episode, we're going to talk to you about stress, a topic that many of us, unfortunately, will know a lot about from first-hand experience.
Yeah, we've seen a shocking statistic that 74% of adults in the UK have felt so stressed at some point over the past year that they've actually felt completely overwhelmed or unable to cope.
That's a massive amount, 74%, three-quarters of the people. And of course, as we hit midlife, stress can play a big role. We're often juggling a lot of different responsibilities. We've probably got aging parents. We might have kids to look after as well. So we're kind of like both ends of the spectrum we're looking at. We're juggling our careers.
Yeah, supposed to be at the top of our game, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're supposed to have it all together.
Houses, mortgages, all that stuff.
The pressure is immense. It's like a pressure cooker, basically. And I know we've talked about this in a couple of the other episodes, but we are Generation X, us lot. Very proud, loud and proud Generation X. But we are also termed as Generation Squeezed for this very point. So we are bound to be highly stressed.
Those baby boomers, they took all the houses and all the money.
Didn't they? Thanks, Mum and Dad. So firstly, we're going to talk about what stress is. James, do you want to just kind of give an overview of where stress comes from, the background to it?
So we've probably all experienced it, right? In a severe case of stress, you might have the whole thing of sweaty palms, heart palpitations, sweating everything, shaking, that kind of thing.
I don't sweat.
That's typical adrenal response. Of course, that's quite an extreme one. But what's happening in the body when we experience stress? So there's some quite interesting hormonal things going on. So the main two hormones that come into play when we are stressed or in a stressful situation are cortisol and adrenaline, both of which you've probably heard of. Now, cortisol is our get up and go hormone. It's designed to spike first thing in the morning to get us up and going and get all of our systems firing. And
I don't usually have that bit.
No, you don't. You need coffee to get you going, don't you?
He has to bring me a cup of coffee in order for me to even open my eyes.
And then adrenaline, of course, a famous fight or flight. So if we're faced with a dangerous/stressful situation, our adrenal glands will pump out a lot of adrenaline into our system. But what this cocktail of cortisol and adrenaline does, it was designed for exactly that, fight or flight. It actually prioritizes blood flow to what you're going to need it for, so to the muscles that you would use for running away or fighting, so basically your outer muscles, and shuts it down from your internal organs. Twofold effect: one, so there's more available for the muscles, and also if you get injured, there's going to be potentially less bleeding and all that stuff. So it's quite an old evolutionary response. And the thing is, it's designed for those extreme danger situations where it is gonna probably save our lives. What's happened today with modern society, with all the things that we're juggling, most of us don't come face to face with tigers on a daily basis, of course.
You come face to face with me.
Yes, it's true. It's almost the same thing. If I catch you in a bad mood, that is a stressful situation. But what we call low to medium level stressors going
just
on
constantly.
and on and on. And that can be different things for different people. But it could be like an unhappy relationship. It could be the pressures of a job. It could be your email.
Children.
Ping, 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 ping. And that, because you're getting an emotional response to it, is pumping up your cortisol and your adrenaline. Perhaps not to those super high levels, but the system's designed to go super high and then come back down low.
Yeah.
What it's not designed for is to be constant, just bang, 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 bang. So you're running always at low to medium level of stress response, basically. And
going back to our ancestors, when James was saying, it shuts everything else down, the other systems down, it shuts down the digestive system. For us women, it shuts down our menstrual cycle. It shuts down the things that we just don't need in that fight or flight response. It just shuts everything down. So that is on that low level. We're going to go on to this, but that is why we do have, at this low level of stress, all the implications physically and mentally from that response.
Yeah, so of course it's an amazing response for us, and it is great if you are ever in a truly dangerous situation. But where it's the drip, drip, drip effect, it starts to have all kinds of negative impacts on your health. In the most extreme cases, you can actually suffer adrenal fatigue. Your adrenal glands just give out; all the adrenaline's gone. And slightly less than that, but also really common. It's just general fatigue, right? Because it makes you tired being in a stress response all the time. And you know, if you ever had like a super stressful day, how exhausted you feel. You might not have physically had to have done much, but if the day itself, or you've had a really stressful situation, you'll get home and you're just absolutely knackered.
It's actually really important to say at this point. So stress has a really bad rap. And yes, obviously we've just talked about the bad sides of it, but there are some kind of positive implications of stress. For example, sometimes, if you're going to stand up on stage, for example, and give a massive speech, if you haven't got any of that kind of fired up feeling, which again is the stress response at a basic level, on a hormonal level, that's the stress response. But that gives you like the right level of adrenaline. That's also a level of stress that is actually positive for your performance, for example.
Exactly.
So it has a bad rap, but actually it can be on the right levels. And here's the problem: in like society these days, we've got the level all completely wrong, and we're getting stressed about all the wrong sorts of things that actually, when we really, really cut it down, don't really matter over the long term, and then probably not going to matter.
Can I remind you of that next time you can't find your lip gloss?
Oh, my lip gloss. I keep losing my lip gloss. It's an expensive lip gloss. I feel like the universe is having a laugh with me. Yes, anyway.
Claire's made a very vital point there. Like, small amounts of stress are useful for performance situations.
Like when you're, you're an athlete and all that kind of stuff, or, you go on stage.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to look in today's show about some of the impacts of stress, give you some tips to deal with it, and also look at the two ways stress can affect us. So there's one that we call broadly environmental stress, which is the kind of things that would stress anyone and everyone. And the other one is actually like taking into consideration your personal style, your personality, how you like to operate. Because obviously, listen, someone who gets a massive buzz from going up on stage and chatting and talking is not going to be that stressed by that situation. But if they're that extroverted, sitting them in the corner and telling them to be quiet, they are going to be stressed in that situation. And, vice versa.
You're talking about me there?
Yeah, maybe. A quiet person that suddenly has to go and give a massive presentation to thousands of people. So it's important to realise there's like a personal element and a general environmental element.
Absolutely.
So let's look first, we've just talked about the hormonal impact, but how does that play out in terms of the physical effects?
Well, we have the little pesky cortisol. Again, gets a bad rap. It's very, very, it's an important hormone in our body. But again, as we get older, it's a lot more difficult for us anyway to release that little bit of extra fat, especially around our middles. So that becomes harder anyway. Add that to the stressful lives us midlifers have. We have so many pressures. We're supposed to feel like it's all together. And even that pressure we put on ourselves, our life's not looking exactly the way we thought it would. Societal pressures, family pressures, everything also increases your level of stress and the hormone cortisol. Sadly, if there's too much cortisol in our blood system, we are going to hold on to fat even more.
And not only that, cortisol is indicated to abdominal fat predominantly. So it's making you hold on around your belly area, which none of us really want.
No.
So cortisol's bad. But this is the thing, and we see this all the time with clients we're training. We actually, the training and the diet can be pretty good.
Yes.
But then we find that there's other stressors in their life.
Which is why we're really, really hot on doing our DNA, blood and cortisol testing with our private coaching clients. Because, as we're getting older in midlife, you feel like you've reached a plateau. You're beating yourself up because your diet is kind of on point, so is your training, everything else seems to be quite right, but something just isn't working and you've plateaued and you're getting really frustrated, which is making it worse. And that's why when we get those results back, more often than not, we can see a really funny skew in cortisol levels. And it just helps people like understand their body better and actually be kinder to it, because you understand it. We spend so much of our lives battling with our own bodies, not really understanding what's going on. And that obviously gives a real insight into what's going on from the inside out.
So yeah, there's a first good reason, right? If your cortisol levels are high, you're going to be holding on to body fat, and primarily around your abdominal region, which we don't want. Now, if you're stressed, of course, also your sleep pattern's going to be disrupted, and in turn, this is like a vicious cycle, right? You're stressed, so you can't sleep. Lack of sleep makes you more stressed. Again, this can contribute to like high cortisol levels.
Yeah, we see this a lot. Again, I've seen this with my clients. Their cortisol is incredibly high at the end of the day.
When it should be at its lowest. So we have a natural rhythm for cortisol, which is peaking in the morning when we first wake up and then declining through the day. In today's society, we'll often see that reversed.
Yes.
It's already high in the morning and it's increasing through the day as we get more and more stressed.
Listen, we're going to get some tips at the end here about how to overcome those things, because it is a really, really common thing. But also, when, again, James just mentioned this is a vicious cycle, what happens is when you have a lack of sleep and your sleeping patterns are all disturbed and you have high cortisol, your hormone leptin, there is a decrease. There's been studies showing that there's a decrease in leptin, which is your hormone that says, I am full. So, this is why it's so important to know what's going on in the inside, basically.
This is the midnight munchies.
Yeah, exactly. So what you're doing is, that hormone isn't saying, I'm full. So that's where comfort eating comes in. So it is a really vicious cycle. So it's really, really, this is the kind of stuff that stress has, the impacts stress has in our lives.
And it is linked to our eating habits as well. So again, when we're stressed, we tend to crave more starchy, sugary foods, like AKA carbohydrates. Our nutrition one, we don't class carbohydrates as the enemy. But
it's not no carbs before carbs.
Yeah, you need a decent amount of carbs to up. It's the wrong kind of carbs, and stress in particular have you reaching for the wrong kind of carbs, the really sugary, really starchy ones.
Because when you feel low, when you eat carbohydrates, it lifts the endorphins again. So that again, there's a actual physical thing going on inside your hormones that makes you crave those carbs.
Yeah, and this is where we can get caught in another negative loop, right? So we're stressed and we have the comfort food, which is your sugary, starchy carbohydrates.
Mood is lifted.
Mood's lifted, but two things here. You're probably going over your calorie allowance and you're probably going over your carbohydrate allowance and shifting more towards a high carbohydrate diet when you want to be medium. But you're getting the feel-good dopamine coming off that and feeling great. So it's alleviating the stress temporarily. So you eat, the stress is gone. Then you get the guilt, whatever.
Oh, the bowl of pasta. Does anyone relate to that? Like the bowl of pasta late at night? I used to. I obviously don't anymore. He's looking at me strangely, guys. He really is.
Pasta is the devil's food.
It is, especially at night.
Yeah. We get sick because... most people don't know this. Most of our neurotransmitters are actually produced in the gut, not in the brain. And there's more and more research on this. It's
a game changer for lots of people to know that.
But they've realised that's why there's such a close emotional link between eating food and mood, right? Because what we're putting into the nutritional system is affecting our mood, because it's affecting the production of neurotransmitters. So, of course, when we're stressed, this is coming into play as well.
And also, again, this is something that I definitely used to do when I was in my corporate life in London. I would grab food on the go. I'm already highly stressed. And I would grab food on the go. I would eat it on the go. I wouldn't actually be present with my food. And I know that sounds a really weird thing to say, but if you're just gulping it down and you're not present and you're doing other things at the same time, your digestive system is screwed. Basically, that is going to increase the level of stress for your body. So eating on the run, it again is such a bad implication on your stress levels.
Yeah, and we can see this. So I don't know the stats off my head, but instances of IBS and gluten intolerance are massively on the increase. And certainly we see a lot more people presenting with those symptoms. However, very important to note, like in a lot of cases, so gluten intolerance is something like less than 2% of the actual population. What's actually happening is it's usually down to two things. It's not that you're gluten intolerant or that you have IBS is going to be caused by this. It's actually that you're stressed, so you're eating more processed foods very quickly and just eating on the run. You're not actually getting a proper digestive cycle going. And of course, then you're getting the pains, the
bloating,
bloating, all the rest of it.
I used to have it.
And people are kind of jumping to it was the gluten, or I've got IBS. Well, yeah, it might be IBS now, but it's actually being caused by the way you're eating the food and the stress that you're under.
I just need to give you a little pointer on this because I'll kick myself if I don't. With the IBS, I used to get IBS really, really badly, and a lot of it is dehydration. So just a little quick tip for you, going off piste a bit. If you are experiencing IBS, it could be that you are incredibly dehydrated. Little tip there.
Also true, we should be drinking around 2 litres of water a day minimum. Top tip there, get one of those 1.5 litre bottles and make sure you finish that plus a bit more in the day. So
the mental and emotional implications of stress.
Now you're well placed to talk about this, Claire.
Why? Go on, say what you want to say.
Flying saucepans.
Honestly, you are going to make me sound so bad.
I personally don't suffer from stress, so...
Goodness.
I'm in my hammock right now.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we all know like the mental and emotional impact of stress. I know James is joking there because I don't throw saucepans at his head, only when he's being really annoying. But you know, the emotional side of that, you are highly, highly stressed when the smallest thing can trigger you. You know, it might be just flying off the handle. James is sitting here with a big grin on his face.
I am biting my lip so hard right now.
That'll make a change. So, you know, the flying off the handle with our partner, our children, not being able to feel like you can cope at work. Just the smallest things, when you actually, if you took a step back, when you are calmer in a different mindset, that actually wouldn't really bother you as much, but that just builds and builds and builds. And you know, again, this is something that I've experienced in my life, where that level of anxiety, you can feel it again in the gut, because our emotions are in our gut. I didn't realise this until a lot later, but you know, that knot in your tummy, the stress, the anxiety, the tiredness, just bursting into tears at the smallest thing. And it just builds and builds and builds. And you know, we have to find, and we are going to give and share our tips, because we've been there, share our tips on how to at least alleviate some of these mental and emotional stresses in your life.
Yeah, it can have a massive, massive effect. Listen, if you're under a big amount of stress, then you know, emotionally you're not going to be in a great place, and that's going to affect your relationships.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we can relate times of being so stressed, like you actually cease to function properly. So you feel under more pressure to complete something, say a work-related thing, but the stress is so much, you're just making obvious mistakes or missing things.
Yeah, and you don't get kind of creative downloads anymore. Everything just it just goes to pot, really. And I think also one of the things that I've seen in myself in years gone by and in clients is you become quite isolated.
Yeah.
So we don't want to admit that we are stressed and we can't cope, and this is one of the biggest problems in today's society. We see it as a weakness, we see it as a failure if we say, look guys, I'm not coping, and it's okay not to be okay, because as we know, 74% of the UK population in the last year felt like they actually can't cope. So we need to speak about it more. We need to make sure that people feel more connected, which is hopefully what this podcast is even doing, you know, making us feel connected and understood. But reaching out and seeking help, there are people out there that can help you.
And it is easy to feel isolated. You know, one of the factors that's coming into play in modern life, there's kind of a double header effect, is that technology was meant to make everything easier for us, but often it's increasing our workload. So, you know, probably if you're working in an institution or corporation now, you're probably doing a job that 20 years ago, 3 or 4 people would have done. If you think about that, you know, go back to my father's time in the office, you had a presentation, you had a team that you go and brief a presentation, then someone actually makes a presentation, etc., etc. And now, like, you have to do everything yourself because the technology is there that you can.
There's no excuse, basically.
Basically, do everything. So, you know, one person's doing 4 people's jobs, and at the same time, that means you are more isolated. Your team is smaller, and there's a lot more remote working and isolated working as well going on.
Just on that as well, because we don't have another stressor in a work environment that, you know, I noticed before I left the corporate world, and I know it's got worse now, is that we do feel isolated and alone, because, and that is a stressor in itself, because, you know, have you ever been in a team meeting? I'm going to put you in a situation now where you go into a team meeting and you walk in and no one even looks up. Everyone is just on their phone. Everyone is trying to seem incredibly important, whether they believe they are or not. Actually, it could wait. You could actually have a relationship with your colleagues where you feel less isolated. And you used to talk to people about some of the stresses in your environment at work, but now no one even talks.
No. I used to walk into meetings, everyone would be like, "Hi, who are you? How are you?" And you'd do an informal chit chat. Now everyone sits down looking at, pretending they're so busy and so important on their phones.
And actually, if you just made those relationships, some of those people could probably take some of the workload off you because you've actually even talked about it.
It's not just work though. People can feel isolated, you can even feel isolated in a relationship. Sometimes things come up for you don't feel you can talk to the other person about, and that can feel incredibly isolating as well. And this is when you need to lean on your social network, and I don't mean the virtual kind, the real kind, like go out for friends with coffee, go and meet a friend for a beer or a glass of wine. Don't be afraid to share this stuff. It really can be a lifesaver.
And again, I've coached lots of women that have children, and that's, they're bringing up their children, which is an incredibly admirable job. I couldn't do it. And the stresses and the isolation there as well is very real. So there's no judgment on you saying, I can't cope right now, regardless of what scenario you're in. Please stop putting labels on yourself and, judging yourself. So
we're going to come on tips, but I say, don't hold it in. Don't imagine you're the only one. Everyone,
you are not.
Look, 74% of people already are so overwhelmed that they feel unable to cope. I mean, everyone feels this. So, and don't be afraid to voice it to a friend. Go, you know what? This situation's really getting to me.
Yeah.
Even just talking about it sometimes will relieve the stress.
Well, James and I are really, really open about the fact that last year we had the last 2 years before this one, we had an incredibly stressful time, and hopefully our story helps people feel more connected to us, because what people present on the outside isn't always what's going on. So let's reach out and be honest and vulnerable with each other.
Totally.
So some tips.
Yes. Well, we can talk about common stressors. I'm sure we all know what these are. We've covered a lot there. They can be relationships. They can be work. They can be stuff like the commute. Listen, some things are always going to be stressful. If you're in a capital city, stepping onto a crowded bus or tube or whatever with loads of other angry-looking people who are all trying to face down is always stressful. Just finding ways to make it more enjoyable, which might be a book, a podcast like this one.
Yay!
Right? And then personal stress and style. Listen.
Sorry, I just jumped in with the tips, but sorry.
I'll cover this really
Apologies.
quickly. Just try and think about what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy personally, and whether you are being coerced into stuff that's stressing you, because it's just not you, right? And if you are, you're creating what we call cognitive dissonance, right? Your behaviour and beliefs are out of whack. So you either have to change your beliefs or change your behaviour. It's probably easier to change your behaviour and just go, you know what? I don't like going to the public swimming baths. It makes me stressed. Don't go.
Yeah.
Well, of course, you can do the belief work and change those structures, and we do that with clients. But do have a look where your personal style might be out of tandem with what you're being made to do.
Can I just give one real life example of me here? So I know I talk about this. I was in PR for years. Right as soon as I started at the age of 21, I was in
a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Oh, I love you. You just said that's a couple of years ago. I knew there was a reason I married you.
My brain's still in 1999.
Well, it's the best place. I can tell. So anyway, I was doing my PR job, and I knew really, really quickly that it was a personal stressor. It went against my entire belief system. It went against my values. I didn't want to be phoning journalists about alcohol brands. And that caused me immense stress because it was against the essence of who I am. So in that sense, there's just a real life example of have a look at your values, what are important to you, and are you doing stuff that relates to that, or are you not? Because I can guarantee that in itself will make you feel completely disconnected.
So there we go. That's our first big tip, which is leading nicely to the rest of the tips. The next one we're going to say, now we know that a lot of emotion and neurotransmitters are in the gut, just try and be more mindful about what you're eating. Don't eat on the run. And main thing, just try and cut out processed foods and go as natural as you can.
Yeah.
That's not going to have an immediate effect, but over time that will have effect on reducing your stress levels.
Yeah, and try not to just reach for the carbs. Physically, obviously, we are massive advocates for moving your backsides. This will release feel good endorphins, guys and girls.
Scientifically proven in many studies.
You don't have to be a marathon runner. You don't have to like running. I don't like running. I went running yesterday for the first time in 2 months, and the DOMs I have today, I mean, I'm in agony. So I'm not a runner. I don't really like it. Find your thing, but just move yourself. Go out for a walk.
You love the boxing, don't you?
I love boxing.
Claire's stressed. I'll put on the pads. We'll put on the gloves.
I accidentally missed the pads. Go for his face.
But yeah, just move. Something like intense. So it might be something intense for you that gets your stress out. It might be something like relaxing, like a yoga class or something that just helps you calm and get that stress out, but move the body.
Definitely move the body. Sleep. Okay, we've talked about sleep patterns and cortisol and all that kind of stuff. Our top tip here is just switch off the devices, please. An hour before bedtime. Do not look at your email. This is going to increase your stress beyond belief. Do not look at social media, at everyone else's perfect, in brackets, life. I mean, this is one of the things we see in all of our retreat clients, all of our coaching clients, and it's one of the top tips that makes a huge difference.
Massive. The other thing, just on a hormonal level, the blue light from the screens triggers an awake hormone, so that's why you want to avoid it for 2 hours before bed.
Yes, and obviously, one of the things I would say is meditation. A guided meditation. Now, I know this might sound a bit woo-woo to some people. It doesn't mean sitting there, taking deep breaths in and saying Om over and over again, because if you're like me, that just simply doesn't work. I'm too high octane. But listening to a guided meditation that's only like 15 minutes long, that massively helps. Even just being aware of your breath, just take some nice deep breaths when you're feeling stressed, or have like a little app on your phone that you listen to that just calms you down. We've got loads of recommendations. If you want to reach out, let us know. We'd be more than happy to advise you on which one we find really helpful. Another one is scribing. So getting your thoughts and feelings and anxieties out on a piece of paper. I cannot tell you how crucial this is to releasing stress. It is such a great way of just getting it out of the mind on a pad of paper, instead of it just being jumbled up mess in your subconscious mind.
Yeah, and looping back to sleep, if you wake up, what I call the 4 a.m. heebie-jeebies, but that really actually inconsequential thing, but suddenly at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's like the most
important thing
stressful,
in the world.
Panic-inducing thing in the world.
It's gonna be like earth-shattering.
Two tips on that. One is just write it down on a bit of paper and say, I'm forgetting about it. The other one is just do a quick, what we call a reframe on it. Go, in a year's time, when I look back on this thing, will it be important in my life at all? Probably not. So that's just another quick tip there.
Yeah, and actually, like James says, just getting up and scribing at the time. If you're really, really finding it difficult to sleep, don't just lie there hoping it's going to get better. Get out of bed, scribe. This is what I used to do last year. Just get it out of your head. And I think the last one is one that we always bang on about, and it was kind of in relation to the devices and stuff. Just as a complete entirety, stay in your own lane and stay off social media. Listen, I still have to, because I do the social media for 38, I still have to remind myself, I was saying this to my business coach yesterday, to not get sucked into the scroll hole, I call it, where you're just scrolling through and you can feel your level of gratitude and appreciation for what you have dimming down with every scroll you make. It is so damaging to being present and grateful in your life for what you do have. And it is going to increase the level of stress of you thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not where I need to be. I'm not that successful. I haven't got that much money. I don't look like that. I haven't got those abs. It's an unnecessary stress that has been put in our hands, and only you can take control of it.
And do take control of it. The other thing you can do that I recommend is clean your feed. So
you did this, didn't you?
I did this, and I continually do it. So I only have stuff that I feel that makes me feel really positive when I see it. We've probably all got those annoying characters that pop up. I used to get them, and you see every time you see their post, you're like, oh. You know what?
Get
just unfollow. I don't see them anymore. So I just like good stuff that makes me feel good on the feed.
And if you do it for business, like I do, just go in, post your thing, come back out again. Don't get sucked into it. Just think to yourself, how long have I spent scrolling through Facebook, Instagram, whatever, what could I have done with my time that expands myself into the best possible version that I can be, rather than spending time like watching even what I know we're talking about social media, but like watching Netflix and all this kind of stuff. You're basically trying to numb your brain from the reality of your situation, and your situation is going to stay exactly the same if you keep numbing it in these ways. So just give yourself a good talking to and think, what else could I be doing with my time that will increase my own happiness, my own health, rather than that?
True.
That is a wrap.
That is a wrap on stress.
Yes.
We'd love to hear your thoughts, so do hop over to the Facebook page.
Yep.
The Midlife Mentors, and
the
drop us a
YouTube channel.
message.
Yeah, you've got the YouTube channel there. You can have a look at all our stuff that we put up there around stress and all different tips and hints and things. Yeah, we'd love to hear your questions, your suggestions for any more topics. We're open to all of that, so we are just sending you lots of love.
Yes, have a stress-free day.
Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you, so drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah.